panel. Okay. And I would like to invite to the stage for a panel on leveraging our money to make an impact. We have Eva, Bonnie, Jen, Elizabeth, and Bill. Hey, this is great.
Hi, thank you so much. Okay, so I am also a carbon newbie, even though I've been involved with the Carbon Almanac. And so I am really excited to have this conversation. And my question is, what is the financial connection to this whole carbon conversation? So, Bill, maybe start with you from the finance perspective, from banking.
Sure. Hi, I'm Bill Peterson, and I'm the Director of Climate Lending at Amalgamated Bank, which is headquartered here in New York. And whenever I talk to people about climate, I'm really encouraged by the fact that so many people have made the decision to align their financial and economic decisions with their values, and particularly as it relates to their carbon footprint. But what I'm always amazed at, people are committed to, there's the light green, I recycle, and I compost, and perhaps I've reduced my meat consumption. They're deep green, where I've got solar panels on my house, I've junked the Hummer, and I'm driving the Prius, things of that nature. But for a lot of people, they haven't really connected their banking relationship with their carbon footprint. And what they don't understand is that your deposits, when they go into the bank, unlike what you see in the movies, your deposits are not sitting in the bank vault down in the basement. Those deposits are being used to loan out to companies, to individuals, and a majority of it goes to companies. And what kind of lending your bank is doing is dramatically important to what your carbon footprint is. If your bank is lending to companies that are drilling for oil or contributing to the deforestation of the rainforest, those things, you may not even realize that you're supporting those types of companies. So it's really incumbent on each of us to understand what our bank is doing with our money and ensure that, do they have restricted industries or prohibited industries that they're not lending to? Are they measuring the emissions of the companies that they're lending to in terms of how much of that emission are they contributing to? Are they setting targets for those financed emissions? All these things are really profoundly important in our carbon footprint.
Thanks so much. And Jen and Elizabeth, as it relates to investing, same question.
Sure. So nice to meet you. I'm at Earth Finance, which is a startup based out of Seattle focused on investing in solutions that accelerate towards a low-carbon future. I started in February, prior to which I was the global head of sustainable investing at Goldman Sachs. So thrilled to be with you today. So what does it mean for investing, and how does that translate to your carbon footprint?
Yes.
So every investment that you make, which is generally likely your 529 for your children, your 401k plan, maybe you have a brokerage account, has a positive or a negative externality, which means a positive or negative impact on the world around us. And so generally speaking, for folks like you and I, we're not picking and choosing companies. We're investing in mutual funds, which are groups of companies, and each mutual fund has a carbon footprint. And depending on the holdings, that predicates if that carbon footprint is large or small. And so if you're investing in, for example, a group of materials, industrials, energy companies, inherently the footprint's probably larger than investing in something like solar panels or renewable energy. And so understanding that footprint translates into potential profits or losses. Because if you think through, okay, there's reputational risk attached to having a large carbon footprint right now. What if this company in the mutual fund has, a headline that says they're doing terrible things to the environment? That sometimes translates to a loss for that company. Or if you think about policy, and specifically we now have the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the biggest climate bill in history at $400 billion passed by the Biden administration last year. There are policy incentives for companies that have or utilize renewable energy. And so if you think through how does this actually translate into my bottom line, if you understand the carbon footprint in your investments, you can better understand the outlook potentially for the profitability of your investments.
Thank you.
So I'm going to take it maybe a step up from that and just talk really more about what you can do and looking at your finances. So we've talked about like risk, return. With Green Portfolio, my company as founder, we're really focused on helping you understand like the climate impact of your money. So banking, investing, right? And financed emissions, as you've heard both of them speak about, it really touches every aspect of your money. It's hard though, as you as an individual, to really look into that, right? And so what we do is look at funds. Like I mentioned, most of you are in funds, 401ks, and we try to help you understand where the impact actually is. So you might have heard about environmental social governance funds. We've done an analysis, 69% of ESG funds out there still contain fossil fuel. So if that's your directive around financed emissions and you want to remove that, that's not necessarily the answer for you. So what we're trying to do really is make sure that we are that link, that guide for you to help you get to where you need to with their products and their offerings for you.
That's like a perfect segue into my next question, which is, as carbon newbies here, what's the first step that any of us can take to start making those changes in our personal finances?
I would just say know your baseline. It's really hard to figure out what your money's doing, right? So we help you with that. So you can make an account right now on greenportfolio.com and show where you're banking or hook up your 401k account, and we can actually tell you what your money's up to from a climate perspective. Knowing where you start from, and everyone always has there's no portfolio is perfect. No portfolio is going to be climate perfection, right? Everyone's starting with improvement. And so if you can do something small today just to understand how to switch your bank to a greener alternative, or how to change out of a fund that is containing a lot of oil production, for example, and start to think about how you can move it, whether or not you take that action today, but start to plan it, I think that's a really big step.
Thank you so much. Jennifer, your same question.
So I have 3 steps. And when I tried to think of something clever for you to remember them by, an acronym or a metaphor, I realized they're decarbonize thoughtfully, invest in climate solutions, and engage, which translates to die. So that's not a great acronym for you, but maybe you'll remember it, because maybe if we don't do anything, there's adverse implications here. But I'll talk through really quickly what each one means. So decarbonize thoughtfully is look at your portfolio. There's a really easy way to do this potentially is if you just log on to morningstar.com and you plug the ticker right into the top where there's a little place to plug the ticker in, you can understand if your portfolio has a high carbon intensity relative to its peers, relative to the other funds that are just like it. And so if you look in there and you plug your portfolio in and you see the spectrum of funds and yours is all the way to the left, and you want to be thoughtful about decarbonizing your life, then maybe that's not the best option for you. Maybe you'd like to pick something that is on the lower end of the carbon spectrum. And that doesn't mean churning your portfolio. It simply means maybe you've got this manager who's not thinking about things that align with your vision, and maybe you want to pick a different manager. So that's the first step, decarbonize thoughtfully. Second step is invest in climate solutions. So, there's so many reports out there, but 16% of carbon projects are funded right now. There's a $1 trillion gap, so every dollar matters. And so, you may not meet the minimums to invest in institutional products, but you can invest in the mutual funds and ETFs that are aligned with wind, solar, geothermal, hydrogen. Google them, they're out there, and if you want to put a small sliver of your portfolio into something like that, I think that really aligns with the vision of somebody who wants to decarbonize. So you're decarbonizing thoughtfully, you're investing in climate solutions, and the last step is to engage. So if you have a financial advisor, to your point, ask them, what's my baseline today? How do I think about my carbon footprint in my portfolio? If you have a 401k HR person, ask them, hey, is there a sustainable option in the plan? And if there's not, can we talk about how to get one into the plan? And so those are some of the steps that I would think about to kind of bring it home to your personal life and make it real for you.
Thank you.
Hello? I think one of the things that we, as a country, have to realize is that financial institutions really need to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And that comes from, what are they financing? And so in terms of what each of us can do is, ask questions. And my simple question to leave you with would be, where does my money spend the night? Where does your money spend the night? And how is that being used? And you find that out through things like ESG reports. If you are invested in financial institutions, listen to their reports, listen to their financial reporting, their annual reports. And if they're not touting what they're doing that's good, that's a bad sign, right? The kinds of financial institutions that are really developing solutions and are committed to these solutions and ensuring that they're not financing things that may not align with your values, they're going to talk about it and you're going to see that. So again, I suggest making sure that you're asking the right questions.
Yeah, that's a perfect segue to my last question, which is, what should we be asking? Like, what is the one thing that we should be asking that we don't know to ask that would give us the most leverage going forward? Yeah?
There are so many things.
Yes, I can imagine.
Let's see. If I had to distill it down to one thing, I think what Bill was talking about, right, is like, what are the companies or the financial institutions reporting on? When they're talking about net zero, are they truly talking about net zero in terms of reducing what they're actually doing? Or are they talking about carbon neutrality where they're just maybe offsetting? Are they talking about in absolutes? Are they talking about in percentages? So understanding all of that is very critical, because there's obviously a nuance and a marketing way sometimes of how things are reported, and it's sometimes honestly to confuse you as an individual. I'm gonna say, or like, if you don't want to ask the question, just come to greenportfolio.com, because we're doing all that for you.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thanks, Jennifer.
So I would ask, so we're in an energy transition right now already. Every sector, every industry, every economy is evolving at different paces. So I would ask, how do I capitalize on this alpha opportunity? Everyone's thinking about climate risk, and they think about that this is really, philanthropic or mission driven, or there's some concessionary element to investing in climate solutions. This is an alpha opportunity. I mean, we were talking about fusion yesterday. I mean, there's some really cool stuff that's coming to market that is scaling and people are thinking deeply about right now. So dig into it and figure out how you can get involved.
Yeah, and I think people should be voting with their wallet, right? That's what's going to get things done. And I think in order to do that, you have to be informed about what people are doing with your money.
Oh, excellent. Fascinating. Thank you so much. And I do know that within the Almanac, there's a section on green finance. So this is a great beginning to that. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Eva.